We've seen Peridot grow a lot throughout the series. From her original appearance as an unnamed villain heralding the re-emergence of Homeworld, to her current position as a beloved member and self-proclaimed leader of the Crystal Gems, Peridot has learned a lot about Earth, the Gems, and herself. In one of the latest episodes, Too Short to Ride, Peridot learns that she has metallokinesis, or the control over metal. We also learn that Peridot is an Era 2 Peridot, meaning that she does not have all the same powers and abilities as her Era 1 predecessors. By looking at Peridot now, as well as what we learned in previous episodes, we can see just how much Homeworld has changed since they started this new era. This is going to be a series of videos of sorts, where we discuss aspects of both Peridot and her Homeworld. First up is seeing how Homeworld has changed economically. Now, economics doesn't just refer to markets and money. At its core, economics deals with how to allocate resources, knowing they're scarce and limited. In order to understand the context of Peridot's limb enhancers and her current lack of abilities, we need to understand Homeworld's motivations, namely how they deal with their resources. I was actually going to make a theory video that discussed the socio-political changes Homeworld went through, which ultimately stated that the Gem War was the turning point from the Homeworld we see in the answer to the current Homeworld. But before I could finish that, the show answered that for us in Too Short to Ride. I may revisit that topic eventually, however. Too Short to Ride confirmed that there was a resource shortage on Homeworld. This caused many things such as forcing Homeworld to be much more efficient with every single action. But that's not all, because now we see another effect of that resource shortage. When Peridot admits that she can't shapeshift, she says that Homeworld can't make gems like they used to. What does this tell us? First, it tells us that Homeworld is still making gems, despite a resource shortage. In other words, they're understaffed. Looking back at what gems are, they are primarily a military race. They need to conquer other worlds because their very creation entails the draining of planetary resources. And gems know this. That's why the plans for the Earth colony in It Would Have Been Great involved the creation of only some kindergartens. The planet wouldn't be overrun with them. The resource draining would account for the Swiss cheese appearance of the planet. But on what's left of the planet, there would be communication towers, warp systems, and edifices similar to the lunar sea spire. To manage the colonies, Homeworld would need soldiers, technicians, pilots, engineers, supervisors, and of course civilians. But there's a very significant event that's been shown to drain Homeworld's resources significantly: the Rebellion. Homeworld lost the war. That's thousands of gems, ships, and weaponry lost. Not to mention, resources were used up during the war to sustain the fighting. When we look at the cluster, we see a smattering of many, many gems. That's not even the totality of how many lives were lost. When you subscribe to the theory that the cluster is made exclusively of crystal gems, or a mix of crystal and Homeworld gems, you have to admit that the number of casualties for the side that lost would be staggering based on the cluster. So when Peridot talks about Era 1 and Era 2, it is highly probable that the event that marks their separation is the Rebellion. The second point to bring up is why Homeworld would continue to create gems, knowing that they wouldn't have the abilities of Era 1 gems. The answer is that there's an entire society that already needs to be sustained. Homeworld has blocked itself into a corner. The existing gems need resources, which means Homeworld needs to keep looking for colonies. But these colonies need regular maintenance, so you need to make more gems. It becomes a cycle, and Homeworld is trying to change that by being more efficient. Gems who make mistakes, like Peridot did, aren't being shattered on sight, but being directed towards other missions, as we've seen in Message Received. Lost gems, like Jasper, are being retrieved as much as possible. It probably helps that Jasper is an Era 1 gem with all her original abilities present. For all their attempts at being efficient though, it has to be said that the root of their resource shortage now is that their methods are unsustainable. Their solutions attempt to fix the effects of the problem. The resource shortage isn't the problem itself. The problem is that for all their technological gains, Homeworld hasn't tried, or hasn't found a way to exist on a planet without completely draining its resources.
Roomy, with a fresh hint of Earth citrus.
This implies that there are other planets with citrus fruits, and this means Homeworld is no stranger to organic life. And that leads to the third point, which explains Peridot's behavior in Message Received. What does the exchange with Yellow Diamond look like? Peridot remarks that there is value in Earth's organic life that could be beneficial to Homeworld. She made an objective harms-benefits assessment of the planet.
The organic ecosystem creates resources unique to this world. We can't sacrifice all that potential just for one geoweapon! I'd like to tell you some plans I came up with to utilize the planet without disrupting the local—
I've heard enough! I don't care about potential and resources.
This exchange shows something significant. Peridot claims to have found the key to utilizing resources of colony planets without disrupting their ecosystems. That's an incredible feat, and this is why, when Yellow Diamond shrugs it off, Peridot is livid with anger. And that's what led her to call Yellow Diamond a clod and defy her homeworld. Peridot knows full well what Homeworld's economic climate is like. She didn't turn against Homeworld only because she realized how great it was to sing and dance in the sun. She did it because the gem she looked up to as the paragon of logic and decision making actually wasn't. Yellow Diamond was willing to forego an objectively beneficial plan because of personal reasons. So what we have is a less robotic dystopia and more of a civilization trying to sustain itself, fully knowing that its leaders are fallible and, though alien, are what can be described as only human. The decisions made by gems like Yellow Diamond do affect what happens to everyone beneath her, and this translates very well into what we see in Peridot's situation. Peridot herself has some prejudices that she was socialized into, and that's something we're covering next. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for parts 2 and 3 of this series. The writer for this video was Poet of the Piano. Check out their Tumblr full of amazing Steam Universe analysis. Also, many thanks to my Patreon supporters.